Hey Jay,
Hey,
we're going to talk about speaking with the dead, communicating with spirit.
I see dead people.
I see dead people. We're going to talk about that today.
I mean, it's probably about time.
So here's the thing. We have an episode on mediumship,
Mm-hmm.
so should definitely go and listen to that. But this is different.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
We're actually talking about how you, listener,
Right.
can do this for yourself. You can do it for other people, but the point is, like, you don't have to be a professional medium to do
No,
this.
no, that's a great point.
Okay. I'm going to tell everyone right now. When I talk about this and when I teach about this, and Jamie, you're the same way, we're always taking the woohoo out of it
I know.
instead of putting it in.
Right.
And it throws some people a little bit.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about why, because we're not trying to be a bummer.
No, and I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of new listeners from this just based on the title.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're new here
Yeah.
and you don't know what to expect from us, just hang in because we're not going to be Debbie Downers.
No, in fact, I think when you do that, when you take the woohoo out of it a bit, you actually make it much more accessible.
Yeah.
You make it's so much easier to understand. You realize that this is something everybody can do. It's not exclusive. Like, you didn't have to be struck by lightning as a baby on a full moon. Like, you literally can just
No, I know people who literally would have considered themselves muggles, and they literally took classes for a couple years, and they literally have jobs doing that now.
Yes, anyone can do this. And also, anyone can do it, and you don't have to do it for other people. You could just do it for yourself.
Exactly.
Or you could just do it for fun for other people. Like, it doesn't have to become your job. Like, we live in a culture where everything has to be your job.
That's capitalism. Yeah. Anything you like, any hobby is supposed to now be your like side hustle.
Yes. So
you can let that go.
You can totally let that go. Hey, listen, if you do this and you want to do that,
correct.
Awesome. I'm going to tell you right now, as someone who did it for a little while, that is a really hard fucking job. You have to really love it.
From what I've seen, it's incredibly taxing.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. Anyone you see doing that, like when people are like, oh, I'm suspicious of them. If they're doing that in, like, especially in front of crowds,
right,
they're really good and they love it.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It's way too hard
put themselves through
to put yourself through
right.
that. 100%. Right. Okay.
If it's someone like creeping into your DMs and saying,
oh,
that,
yeah,
no. But like,
no.
Like, right.
They're saying you're cursed and you need to come see them because there's an evil spirit around you.
Yes.
Don't answer that DM.
Just block them.
Exactly.
But if you're trying to fill a room, and do that, you're not trying to scam people.
There are way easier ways to scam people than to do that. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I think when we say take the woohoo out, I think this is a funny place to be saying, hey, we're taking the woohoo out, because then we're like, and then we're going to talk to ghosts. Exactly. And I can see how that would be confusing.
Right.
But so I just want to be clear that what we mean by that is we're trying to normalize it, because for every single person listening, you had pagan ancestors that communicating with their ancestors in spirit was a normal, everyday thing that was done on every single Sabbat or holiday.
Right. And no matter where in the world you are from, like,
exactly,
you have pagan ancestors, which just means like pre-patriarchal religion.
Exactly.
Like pre that. No matter where you're from, you had ancestors that did this.
And it doesn't mean like, oh, I come from this long line of this unique witch that could talk to the dead.
No.
It means that, like, literally everyone
was just what everyone did. Everyone was in communion with the earth. They were in communion with energy and spirit.
Yeah. And so we have a lot of episodes on the different sabbats, which I invite you all to listen to.
Yeah.
And people are always like, oh, when we get to the one that Halloween is based on, Samhain, or there's a bunch of different names for it, depending on what culture you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. That's the one with all the talking to the dead. And I think that's funny because it is. Yes. But literally all of them had an aspect of communicating with ancestors.
Exactly.
I like to say ancestors because I think it makes it less like Freddy Krueger-ish.
Yeah, and for me it makes it less woo-woo. Like, the spirit, like jangly bracelets. I say spirit, but like there are some people who say that and it sounds like, oh. But if you say ancestors, that's different.
Exactly. That's what you were doing. You weren't necessarily trying to conjure up the spirit of, like, Princess Diana.
Great point.
You can do that's a possible thing.
Right.
I mean, I don't know specifically that every single person can get Princess Diana, but you know what I mean? Like you could try to call on the spirit of a celebrity that you weren't related to, but that's not what our ancestors were really doing.
No, they were not.
Okay. What would they, if they were like traveling for some reason and they got to a place, would they try to like maybe connect with the land and see what kind of spirits were there to communicate things about that? Yes. This was much more practical than it was like, let me show you a party trick.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I have nothing against people showing it as a party trick. I really don't. And we're going to get into the things that I do have stuff against later that I know you also have things against. Like people sort of come at me sometimes about it, like, oh, but who cares? It's fine to show off. And I'm like, yes, it is fine to show off.
Yeah.
But the point of it should be that like every person can do this to better their own life.
Yeah. And I also don't know any mediums that do it to be showy. They want to help people.
Exactly. There's showy elements to some of them.
Of course, right. Of course.
You're going to a show to see it, so of course there is.
Yeah, but you're not like pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
No.
Like you're trying to help people connect with their with their loved ones.
Most of the mediums I know do it because they really want to help people with grief.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a beautiful thing. And if there's showy elements to it, I love it. Great.
And sometimes that's how you got to get people on board.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Okay. So we have to talk a little bit about the patriarchal view of talking to the dead that you see represented in the media.
Yeah.
And then our pagan ancestors one. So we touched upon how our pagan ancestors saw it. It was every day. You would go back through your ancestral line and ask for guidance.
Yes.
Okay. If it was someone you knew, like if it was like dead grandma, we joke about dead grandma all the time. But like if you were conjuring up dead grandma, someone you knew, you would probably have some sort of altar and there would be items of hers on there and you would be getting advice from her. But you were also, if you had the privilege of knowing grandma when she was alive, she was doing this with her dead grandma. So you probably have stories about that. So you have that and it just keeps going like that. We were passing these things down and that's what we were doing.
Yep.
We were getting advice on like what to do with life and like how to plant our crops and what to look for and how to get through this thing and support.
Or when to have a baby or.
Yes. That's what we were communicating with spirit for. Okay. Now, is it cool to like tap back in and ask a famous dead person information about something that like nobody really knows, it's still a mystery or something? Yeah, that's really cool. Do it. That's fine.
Right.
But like that's not the main application of this. And I think if you go into trying to learn these skills with that expectation, you're going to miss like all the real gold.
Exactly.
Like all the good stuff is in your everyday existence.
But I also feel like people start there and then if they're really interested in it, they then leave that behind.
Yes.
Right? Like you move on from that like.
That's a good point.
The cool aspects.
Like the gateway is something flashy.
Right.
And you like find yourself like really excited about it. But then all of a sudden you're like, before you go to your financial advisor, you're asking dead grandma for some tips.
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, and it's so different. It's a journey of like starting at this like high flashy point and then sort of coming down
and making it more practical, which is what we're talking about. Like that's how it's best utilized.
Exactly. So when you are watching a movie or TV and we've talked about this before, but they're showing you people who can communicate with the dead. I just want you to know that's not what it's really like. Okay. I'm not talking about a reality show that a lot of that is similar. Okay?
Right.
We've talked about how no mediums just go up to someone and read them in a restaurant.
Strangers.
No, like they've gotten permission ahead of time. Like, yeah.
Right.
And they don't actually want to do that. That's just for TV. I don't know any mediums who want to talk to strangers about dead people.
No, and like you need people's consent.
Exactly.
We've talked about that a lot.
Exactly. But what I'm talking about is like in movies or TV, like scripted TV.
Like Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost.
Yes. Or Jennifer Love Hewitt. What was the name of the show she was in? The Ghost Whisperer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great
People
show.
love that show.
Great show. Yeah. Great show. Not at all.
Yes.
What it's like. Not at all the experience.
Right.
Completely misrepresented. And the only reason that I'm talking about that is that if you go in with an expectation to have those kinds of experiences, you're going to think you're doing it wrong.
Right.
It's not like that at all. It's a lot more boring, to be honest.
Right. Or like, it might be a little bit like Whoopi Goldberg. Like you might be clairvoyant and you might actually see a dead person.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But like the way so if you're listening and you're like, no, really, I do see dead people.
Right.
We believe you.
Oh, yeah.
We're just saying, like, don't feel like everything has to be the way you see it in a movie.
Yeah. Like you're not, if you don't make like Sexy Pottery with Patrick Swayze, who's dead, like it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong.
I love that movie.
It's a great movie.
So old. Like, maybe we're aging ourselves, but I love that movie.
But I just don't want people to be like, that's the expectation. Like that's the bar.
Agreed.
And then you go in and you're like, this is a lot more dull than how it's presented. And you're right. It is. Okay. It's very cool.
It is.
But it can be dull.
Yeah.
Okay. The other point that I just want to make in connection with patriarchy is I think this is like where you see this in like a modern day sort of spiritual element. Mm-hmm. But like when you see people in church and they're praying and like in any holiday connected to, that was like taken from a Sabbat, obviously, there's some element of prayer going on. Mm-hmm. And that sort of process of just sort of like you're doing something and you stop and you say a quick prayer and you move on. That's taken from what our pagan ancestors were doing with spirit, with gods with an S, with just any other beings. Right. That's what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Okay. They weren't stopping in and talking to one God because that didn't exist before patriarchal religion. They were talking to like more of the energies of different things and also the energies of their loved ones. And it wasn't like a stop and light 100 candles moment. It, you know, there was ceremonies that involved it, but it was every day in that sense. Yep. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. The first thing you need to do if you want to really dive in to communicating with the dead
is start waking up at 3 a.m., drink a green smoothie, and meditate for 6 hours.
And follow this really expensive
We have this 10-step program you can buy.
We'd like to speak to you about it. No.
Don't do any of that.
Don't do unless you want to. But I mean, but I don't think you should. Maybe get up at like 6 a.m.
And get like a green matcha.
Ooh, it matches your shirt today too. I love it. Yeah, exactly. What you actually want to do is start to understand your clairs.
Exactly.
Okay, so
it's boring. Sorry.
I know.
Sorry, everybody. That's boring.
That's not the answer you want.
I know.
That's not like a midnight seance. Do a midnight seance. That's so cool. But like, that's not where you start.
Correct.
Okay. Where you start is knowing your clairs. So we have many episodes on the clairs. We have an episode on all the clairs and overview. Then we have separate episodes about the main clairs that most people use, which are clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience. We have more coming. Claircognizance. Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
All of those you need to know what your main operating systems are to be able to do this. Because a mistake you see in our industry a lot is like speaking to the dead taught to people by like the person, like say their main clair is clairaudience. Mm-hmm. They're teaching everyone to do it in a clairaudient way.
Correct.
Or if their main one is clairvoyance, they're teaching everyone to do it in a clairvoyant way. Ooh, I just hit the mic. I was so excited about that. But the thing is that doesn't work for everyone because everyone has a different top two. No,
and I talk about it all the time. Like if you don't know anything about your clairs and you're just going off what you see in pop culture and again, the sixth sense, and I see dead people, and you're a person like me who has claircognizance as a main clair, that's not how it works for me. No. So when you're trying to do something like that, you're immediately going to hit a wall.
Yeah, and you're going to think you can't do it or you don't have the gift.
Or
you weren't touched by the right angel or whatever they say. Yeah, all not true.
That also was a show.
That was a show. I watched that show as a kid.
I don't think I did.
I did.
That makes sense.
It was the kind of show you watch with your parents.
I was going to say with your mom.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important to understand that because I don't want you to get discouraged. Mm-hmm. If you're learning from a source and it's not clicking with you, look for a source that's a little bit more open to the different clairs, or maybe is more in line with your own.
Yeah, I mean, if it's saying everything it's saying is about seeing and seeing and seeing. Yeah. Or hearing, and you don't learn like you don't process like that. It's not going to find one that does.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. I also want to touch on the fact that there is spirit energy that people tap into, but there's also other energies that people tap into. Okay. Some people tap into angel energy. Some people make a huge mistake and try to tap into like fae / demony / other energy. Please, we have an episode on that too. Please proceed with caution. The thing that I want to say right here is that like it is not a dangerous thing to do. Like you're not, and some people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. So this is my opinion, but like you're not going to open up with like good intentions to talk to dead grandma and have like a serial killer spirit attached to you and do bad things and like make you do bad things. Like that's
pop culture. Real. That's a movie. You're describing a horror movie. So like when you fear something like that, it's because that's what you've been shown.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Even like subconsciously, like, oh, someone's going to, like, I can literally see that movie playing out that you're describing. Like
trademark.
Right, exactly.
Like that's not the vibe.
How it works. Right.
And we're going to do some steps on, I'm going to give you some steps. It's a 10-step program. You have to buy it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to give you some steps to do to communicate with the dead. Okay. And I'm going to tell you what to do to protect yourself. It's not the way you think you need to protect yourself. Right. I'm going to tell you that right now. Right. Unless you're a regular listener, then you know exactly what I'm going to tell you to do.
Yes.
But that's not the experience. If you're like a real shit person and you like are just hurting people all over the place, if you go to tap in, you're going to attract that kind of energy.
Because that's your energy.
Yes.
Right.
But also, if you're just having a shit day or you're just mad and you keep imagining like kicking Susan in the shin, that doesn't mean you're going to have like an evil spirit attached to you.
No.
You're getting into like religious ideas, and that's not a thing.
Exactly.
Okay. The things you're afraid of, the beings, they're not on this actual plane. I'm going to get a little trippy.
Let's do it.
Okay. I understand.
We're in the spirit episode. We'll do
it. Like they're not here. They're like reaching through something. You're here.
Correct.
You're in charge. Okay.
Correct.
What is far scarier to me than the dead is the living.
Yep. You've always said that.
Okay. All those people around you, far more damaging to you than trying to communicate with dead grandma. And if maybe some weird dead cousin pops in you weren't expecting, like you'll be fine.
Right.
You can handle that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just, people get so scared, and I'm like,
they do.
Have you been around the alive people?
Because I
prefer the dead, to be very honest with you. They respect my boundaries a lot better than the alive people.
Exactly.
Okay. The safety, spoiler alert, we'll get to it too, but it's boundaries and intention.
Yes.
Okay. So if you go in with the intention of getting some sort of message from any spirit loved one of yours, you're good.
Exactly.
Okay. If you go in because you want to like connect with some dark energy, I mean, that's probably not going to work, to be honest. You can try, but like, because you want to hurt people, like that's when maybe you're a little more open to something kind of icky coming around. But nothing can come in and nothing can stay without your permission.
That's true.
So you remember on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, talk about dating yourself?
Yeah.
I loved that show. Okay.
I watched it here and there.
Okay. I was the person who was like, this was back in the day when like you had to be at the TV at the time.
Right, exactly.
I was there.
Gotcha.
Okay. I was ready.
Right.
Okay. So on that show, there was a concept about vampires where they couldn't enter a home or a building unless invited.
Right. And
that was literally coming from the idea of like
boundaries,
energy and boundaries.
Exactly.
Okay. So we'll talk more about boundaries, but like if a spirit comes around you that you don't like, ask it to leave. It has to.
Tell it to leave.
Thank you. Yeah. Be assertive.
Yeah.
Be an assertive leader. Yes. Okay. The other thing that I think is helpful to have some knowledge of are energy centers or chakras. Okay. The thing with this is if you are trying to do something with energy, like communicate, that's it with spirits,
right? Ghosts,
ancestors, whatever word you want to use. That takes a lot of energy. And it takes a lot of a particular kind of your energy to do that.
True.
Okay. So if you have like really gunked up chakras just from having to live in this world.
Right. That's a good point.
It's going to make it a lot harder. Is it going to make it impossible? No. But if you go to do it and you're like, I just can't get there, you might need some energy work. All right. And to just get all of that stuff in balance is just going to make it a lot easier.
Or even like go search, like on YouTube, you can search like energy balancing videos or something.
Like you can frequency music.
Yeah, you can listen to it and it will guide you through opening up and clearing each of your chakras.
Exactly. I also think it's really helpful to know which of your chakras tend to be the ones that get gunked up.
Right.
So like I'm a throat chakra girl.
Right.
If something's going on 100% of the time, my throat chakra is going to get upset about it. Okay. So for me, when I go to do that, like if I'm communicating to someone else what's coming in, that could suddenly be hard for me because it's a throat chakra issue.
Right. Because you're not speaking, but you're communicating, which would be your throat, but you're using your intuition, which is your third eye.
Yes.
You also want your root to be clear because you want to stay grounded here. Like,
and if something gunked up in the middle of those things, it's going to make it more difficult.
Right.
Okay. If you have experienced life, like you're not living in a bubble and pretending nothing's going on in the world, then your chakras probably need some help.
That's a great point too.
So just get it in whatever way feels comfortable to you. You can do it yourself or pay an energy worker. They're great.
Go get some Reiki or get some acupuncture. It's great for that.
Absolutely.
Massage even would be great.
Exactly. Okay. I have some steps. Are you ready? Now, I just want to note that you do not have to do all of these, and you might have different steps, and that's all good. This is just meant to be helpful. I was wondering when the spicy rant was going to come out of my mouth. It's here.
20 minutes.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Do you need a breath? This is taught to people like there's only one way to do it.
Right.
Okay. It's also taught to people that like only the most magical can do it.
True.
There's so many stories, and I kind of go back and forth on how I feel about this because I want people to tell their authentic story and I want them to tell, but I really do think there was this movement in between 2000 and 2010. Okay. Where everyone who did any kind of intuitive work had to tell a near-death experience story, how they miraculously survived.
Yeah.
Or they died for a minute and came back with gifts.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm mad about it, but I understand it. Like there was a wave. We have an episode on the different, like the rainbows, the crystals, what do you call that?
I don't know.
I'm blanking on the name, but like the different generations of like the different kinds of energy. Yeah, exactly. The different kind of empathic energies that come. Okay. So there was definitely a wave of intuitive people that came in and had to shake shit up in a way that in just the way it was acceptable.
Right.
Okay. They were literally the front line of people doing it. So they kind of had to do this, like, this is an outlier thing. I'm amazing to be able to do this. And not everyone can do this, just me. They sort of had to play that role.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I understand, and I'm not necessarily mad at the people who had to do it.
Yeah.
I'm mad that sort of it threw a lot of people off in understanding intuition and understanding your birthright as a human of being able to communicate with your ancestors or loved ones in spirit. You don't have to be related to them to do it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's probably the only way that people would listen to them.
I think it was the only way to get into the mainstream.
Yeah, if it was like extenuating circumstances, some extraordinary experience, like, but like it's the opposite of what's true, is that everyone has this ability.
Yeah. So culturally I get it, but I'm bitter about it.
I hear you. Yeah.
So I'm not mad at the individuals with the story.
No, but
I'm going to hit the mic a lot this week, I guess. But I don't like that's how it had to happen. And I feel like I want to correct it as loud as I can all the time.
Well, and like it worked then, but as we've transitioned out of that, now it's like we're having to repair that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I'd also like to say, like, I am a person who was a little kid who could see dead people.
You were.
I'm that kid. Okay. But I want to say to you right now that it's not just those kids that can do it. Everyone, like if you were a kid that never had that experience, you can still do this.
Right.
Okay. Chances are, if you were like very highly intuitively clairvoyant as a kid, you probably did.
Right.
Okay. So I bet people who are like really highly clairaudient, born that way, have experiences of hearing things. Right.
Yeah.
But like, if you're a mother and your kid has an imaginary friend, it's probably a spirit.
Right.
Okay. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. But like, I think there's also sort of in that same vein where there's that story, like you were a miracle, like wonder kid child that could also do it. And as one, that's not true.
No,
it's not. Okay. And if you think like, well, I wasn't one of those, then you're gonna miss out on something.
Out. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here we go. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
First thing that I think you should do.
Okay.
All right. Is put yourself energetically in a neutral state.
Okay.
All right. So as everyone knows who listens to the podcast, I love a state. State's my jam.
Yeah.
Okay. So create a state for yourself that is your neutral state.
Mm-hmm.
You've already created it, but bring awareness to it. Okay.
Exactly.
I like to have 3 descriptive words that name how it feels to be in a state when I'm really trying to recognize it. Okay. Yeah. For me, I'm clicking in on a states all the time and I'm not always like consciously thinking about it.
Right.
When you're doing something like this that requires something different from you than what you're doing all the time, like speaking to the dead, you want to have like a lot more consciousness in that state. So pick 3 words. Mine are calm, balanced, and alert.
Okay.
Okay. So I go into that state. That's how I need to be. I'm going to tell you right now, everybody needs to be in a similar state to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you try to go in to communicate with spirit and you're like super scared and nervous, it's going to be so hard.
Right.
Okay.
Or if you're feeling like super critical of yourself.
Oh my God. Yes. I mean, that's a fear reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be sitting in your ego if you're doing
exactly.
that. So there needs to be some sort of calm. There needs to be some sort of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And being alert is really important because it's not like you're not going to be like you're like half asleep in that calm, balanced state.
That's a good point.
Okay. You need to be alert, not hyper focused on one thing, but you need to be sort of like open, like you're like a movie's about to start and you're ready to watch the screen.
Yeah.
That's a clairvoyant example.
That is.
Please use your own clair example there.
Exactly.
Right. But like, do you know what I mean? Like that's the state you want to try to find.
Yep.
It isn't, sometimes it's shown mainly in like TV and movies as this like hyper, like charged up, like I had to work really hard to get into this state. And that's a bummer for me because it's the opposite of what would actually work.
Right. That's not calm.
Yeah.
Right.
Calm is important. Same as like a lot of people will ask me, they'll have lost somebody recently and they'll want to communicate with them and they'll be like, I'm having so much trouble. I can't get that. And I said like, well, if you go to think about them and you get overwhelmed with grief and sadness, you're not going to be able to hit that energetic state.
Right. Exactly.
So you just have to work your way through it until you're in a point or have a day where you can reach a point of a little bit more calm and balance.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. The next thing that you have to do is pull in, this sounds like maybe you can make this sound less like 90s male motivational speaker.
Okay.
But I did learn from a lot of them. You need to pull in your own version of leadership energy.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I do.
You're in charge.
You're the boss.
You're the boss here. And you need to give that, even if you don't feel like it, you got to fake it. Like you've got to
be assertive.
Yeah.
Right.
You are, it's like if you were in a crowd and you were the boss, like what would you do to like energetically and like with your posture and your body to be able to lead that crowd? Like what would you do? You have to pull that in. You don't have to do it like somebody else, your version of it, but you have to be the leader.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in my experience, when you're trying to call in spirit energy, most spirits aren't going to come over to you if they don't think you can manage it.
Yep. That's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I say come over to you, again, they're not like walking in, but they're not going to like send their energy to you if they don't think you can manage it.
Exactly.
Okay. So again, my apologies for sounding like a 90s motivational speaker, but
no, that's a good point.
Is the kind of thing you need to find how to do. Okay. Set an intention next. This can be in your head. It doesn't have to be out loud. I don't personally like to say them out loud, but some people do. And I think when you're first starting, it can feel a little bit more powerful to like actually say it. But all you're going to do, you're not going to be too specific, but you do want to be clear what your intention is. Like, oh, I want to connect with dead grandma, or I want to just receive a message, or maybe you're specific. Right. I need to know about this. Okay, right. Cool. Yeah. Just set that intention. Okay. You're also going to sort of set the intention that you're open. Okay. So you want to sort of visualize opening something. Again, clairvoyance, visualizing open the door. For a clairaudient person, it might be a certain word you say, okay? For a clairsentient or claircognizant person, it's probably going to be something that you do. So like lighting a certain candle calls that in, okay? Whatever feels right. Again, a claircognizant person might have like a thought that they just like emulate and like pull that feeling in. Like whatever works for you, but there's going to be some sort of
I would probably literally just do it with my hands in front of me.
Perfect.
You know.
Okay. Yes. Now, do you have to like have a circle on the ground of candles lit and like, you know, I don't know, magical plants around you? No.
If like a grid of crystals or essential oils.
Yes.
Diffusing.
You don't need any of that.
But you can do it.
If you want to do that, awesome. You know, some people creating that like kind of experience really does help pull it in, especially if you weren't someone who just kind of grew up, in my case, trying not to do it. Like that might, because it's not so second nature, that doing something like that might help, and it might just enhance the experience for you. Awesome.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that.
I think that might help a lot of people sort of click into that state of,
I think so too.
I'm doing this thing and I'm ready now to receive. Like, I think that the ritual of that.
Yes.
And I actually think that there are probably people listening who would argue with us that crystals and oils and all those things that operate at different frequencies, they would actually help.
Yes.
Right. Because they're calling in XYZ type of frequency, right? That can assist in you having the right energy for that. So like, I'll give you that one.
I agree.
Yeah. Like I think that could help you. Yeah. Do you need them? Absolutely not. Like you do not need those, but can they help you and assist you? Yes. Can they help make it more of a ritual and help click you into a state? Definitely.
Yeah. I think they can enhance it.
Right.
Okay. Me personally, I don't want to do all that pop in circumstance to communicate. Okay. But also me personally, it's not difficult. Like I don't really have to try very hard to be able to do that. So for my experience, that just seems like a lot of work to do something. Okay.
Same. And I would also say that there are people that I know who are mediums, and that when they were starting, they had that sort of a ritual and a routine, but then it became like a crutch where they felt like if they didn't have the right crystal or they didn't have the right whatever around them, they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
I think that's a really good point, because sometimes people sort of interpret doing all those things as it's those things doing it,
right?
Not you doing it, and those things are supporting you, or like supporting
the intention with those things.
Exactly.
And this isn't like Indiana Jones where you have to like, or like the Goonies where you have to step on the right keys and like and pull the right lever to get something to happen. It's not, but that feels safe when like I know I can perform steps 1 through 5, and then I can communicate with spirit. Like that feels safe.
Yes,
I get that.
100%. And listen, if I'm doing something like when we used to do full moon circles, we would purposely create a visual element to the experience, so that the people coming in would have an altar in the middle of a circle, or like a candles and like crystals in different in different places. And it's not because we were just doing it to be showy.
No,
it was because you're walking in and trying to have an experience with a group of people. Like having those elements does help. It does enhance it. Okay. Now for me, if I'm going to try to do that, like communicate with spirit in a way that's less everyday and more like get a big message or whatever, I'm not going to like sit in the middle of my kitchen with like 10 people walking around. I'm going to separate myself into a quiet space. So like, I don't want to sound hypocritical, but like, I do think those things should be seen as enhancers to make the experience better. Or if you're having trouble to like increase something for you, not the thing doing it.
That you have to have that. They're not requirements. They're enhancers.
Exactly. And like you alluded to before, having a routine or a pattern to get into that state of receiving, because that's what you're doing. You're putting yourself in a state that you can receive. Okay. For some people, that's very difficult. Okay. For the idea, a lot of women that I know, the idea of sit and receive is very hard.
I mean, maybe we should have a whole episode on receiving.
I think maybe we should.
Because like it's such a, I mean, it was clearly a very big problem for me.
Me too.
When I started on this, but like if you can't receive spiritual downloads, if you can't receive money, they're all connected. Like if you can't receive in one part of your life, it's going to go everywhere in your life.
Maybe we should do a limiting belief episode on receiving. Yeah.
I mean, you're going to hate to hear it, but like, it's so true.
Your shoulders are going to be up by your ears. They're going to be your earrings for the episode. But like, yes.
Right.
But it's so important to understand. And like, you have these things where like, it's okay to receive in this way, but not in that way. And,
right. If you're someone who won't ask for help, sorry, you're not talking to dead grandma yet.
Dead grandma's trying to help you. It's going to be
helping you.
Yeah. Right. And for a lot of people, some of their first experiences in trying to tap in and get a message are in a group in front of people.
Yep.
And to receive a message and to feel like, especially if someone before you was having trouble and then you get up there and you're like, oh, here's dead grandma telling me, look at me do this. They're going to start to have like a big ego fear reaction going on. And that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, not everyone is a routine pattern person. So you have on this podcast, the two hosts, you have a certainty person and a variety person.
Right.
See our episodes on the human desires.
You also have autism and ADHD.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that you are creating some sort of routine or pattern is going to be different.
Correct.
Okay. And there is not one right way to do it. If you have absolutely no routine and no pattern and you go to do it, it's probably fine. You can still do it.
I mean, even I have a little bit of a routine when I do stuff like this.
It's just going to help you. And it's also going to help you with having boundaries during it to be able to open and sort of close that, to have some element of routine.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
And again, it doesn't have to be that you say a blessing to every goddess you can think of or have an altar or
pray the rosary or whatever.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it the exact same way every time.
Right.
For me, it's much more based in state and like what I do with my body, what I do like with my energy, like that is more, I have a visual thing that I picture. That's more the routine for me. Mm-hmm. But again, if you're someone who it's like, nope, I want it to be like all these steps.
Cool.
And that works. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
It's not a right or a wrong way.
Never.
But don't be shamed into feeling bad about how you do it if you don't have a 10-step routine.
Exactly.
Don't do that to yourself. It's not true. Okay, this is one that people are gonna not like either.
They like none of it.
I know, that's true. You're gonna want to practice allowing and observing passively.
Okay. Yep.
This is difficult because there's not a lot of human-y experiences in the modern world that you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
True.
But I have a kind of example if you'll walk with me.
Okay.
It's a little bit different than this, but I think you can take the state and alter it slightly.
Mm-hmm.
You know the state you go in when you start to scroll?
Yes.
Okay. It's not that different than that.
Dissociating?
You're not dissociating. This is where it's different because you need to be alert.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Right.
It's sort of like if you were like in a room full of people and you had just a couple of minutes and you were scrolling like that, like really kind of intented within a little bit of intention.
Yep.
So it's not, because the thing that I'm comparing it to is the passiveness.
How about like when you're driving?
Yes.
And you don't know how you got from point A to point B. You're aware, you're alert, you know what's going on.
But you just got Yeah. I mean, I think I do that almost every time I get in the car, to be honest with you. But yes. Like you're paying attention. You're not going to get in a car accident. You're not on your phone. You're not texting while you're driving.
Right.
But the state your brain's in is a bit of a passive state because you're not occupying the whole thing.
Right.
So yes, these are that. You can't go to the scrolling part where you're just out of it and forget that life is happening. But you are kind of closing out the sort of other everyday stuff a little bit and trying to focus on the present.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Being really present is not like a switch you flip, and it's not like a all or nothing moment. Okay. As someone who has done this since they were very little, I will tell you that with my 40 years of experience, I'm now 41. So I'll say maybe 0 to 1. I didn't really think about it too much, but after that I did. And trust me, I did. I still have to go like, oh, nope, that's not a present thought. Let me put that to the side for a minute. Oh, nope. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. So again, there's this shame feeling of like, what do you mean you can't be fully present?
Right.
what do you mean? It's like, no, I just thought about the laundry and what time I got to pick up my kid and what time I'm going to do this and the 3 things I forgot to do before I walked up here. Yeah. I thought of that too. Right. It's just the practice of going like, oh, nope, nope, to the side. Nope, not right now. That's what presence is.
That's the key to meditation also, by the way.
It's not that different than meditating.
It's not.
Okay. It's the element of alertness that is different, but it's that passive present state.
And like awareness.
Yes. I would say that communicating with the dead is a meditative state, but it's not the same as like laying in a room, listening to, meditation music.
Binaural beats.
Right. Yeah. Trying to like move to another plane. Right. It's different than that, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
Now, the thing that most people have trouble with is the passive observing, because you've already set your intention. So if you have a certain spirit you're trying to call in or a certain thing you're trying to get info on, once you've set the intention, you got to kind of drop it. And you can sort of direct things if you're able to communicate, but you have to just let what comes in be the thing that comes in. And that is very challenging, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And more so for people whose drug of choice is control. Meaning both of us.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. You need to, at this point in the process, really lean into your clairs.
Yep.
Okay. I heard something. I just have to tell you about it because I loved it so much and I think it will help people. Okay. So I was listening to a comedian. Her name is Hannah. I can't think of her last name right now. She was diagnosed autistic later in life. Yes. She was on Glennon Doyle's podcast. Okay. So I was listening to her being interviewed.
Yeah.
So she was talking, bear with me if you're not autistic. This applies to everybody. I'll get there. Okay. So she was talking about being autistic and things. And one of the things she said was like a neurotypical brain versus like somebody with autism or someone with ADHD. They have like these very specific differences in how they work. Okay. So what people who are considered to have a neurotypical brain, we have an episode on this too, if you want to hear all of our thoughts on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What they do in like a conversation when they're communicating with somebody is they prioritize what's important.
Neurotypical people do
this?
Yes.
Okay. So what's important? And that makes it easier to do small talk. That makes it easier to kind of perform social norms.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So then people with different neurospicy elements have a different thing that they prioritize. And for autistic people, it's what's interesting, which I think if you know me at all, you know that like that I can't not prioritize what's interesting. I literally say the word interesting so much to people. And the reason that I think I'm good at intuitive things is that like when something energetically doesn't match what someone's saying or how they're acting, to me that is one of the most interesting things because it's like out of the norm.
Yes.
Okay.
This is interesting.
It's interesting. Here's why this is important to know. And again, you're going to fill this in. So I don't know what the ADHD one is, but I'm going to say it's similar to what's interesting. Okay.
It's whatever's like hitting the dopamine, like whatever's maybe like exciting or something like it's like interesting though.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you find your word, even if you relate to the autistic element, find the word that makes sense for you. But I think this is important to know because the same way that you communicate with people who are alive is going to really give you a lot of information and open your eyes to how you're going to communicate with people who are in spirit.
That's a great point.
Okay. So if I'm communicating with spirit, all the stuff I'm going to pick up is interesting. Okay.
That's right.
But if someone a little more neurotypical is, they're going to be giving you a lot of great detail. Like they're going to be telling you your dead grandma's birthday. Okay.
That's a good point.
The normal conversation things. But when you're talking to like
you're skipping those details because you don't care about like.
But they're not even popping. It's not that I don't care because a lot of times when I was doing this, especially when I was communicating it to other people, I would try to get that information so that I could kind of show them because we're going to get to this, but when you're doing it with someone else, it's a joint activity. You both have to energetically be in the right space. So as the person doing it, you have to put that person in the correct state.
Right.
as you're doing all of this. This is why it's
a lot of energy management.
It's so much. Okay.
Right.
So it's helpful if you can give like a detail, like the first letter of their name or whatever.
Their favorite color or whatever.
Their birthday or like something like that. And there's a lot of mediums who can do that. And what happens is it like reassures the person.
Yes.
And it puts them in the state to being much more open so that you can have an easier time getting the messages.
Exactly.
Okay. But if you are somebody who's not as neurotypical doing this work, I'm trying, but what I'm getting is like the weird shit about grandma. I'm getting that grandma had a prosthetic leg. I'm getting that grandpa fought in a war. Things that would actually be interesting to me personally are what is coming through.
Yep.
I'm getting like emotional information. I'm going to get a lot of information about what the things were that like were their own blocks and vows in their life. That's the kind of shit I'm going to say to you.
Yep.
Because that's the way I communicate in real life.
In real life, right.
So the same things apply here. So if you're learning this, like, and you're in a class and the person next to you is like killing it with the initials and the names and the connection to you and blah, 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 and you're sitting there like, all I'm getting is this like weird fucking fact about this person.
Right, exactly.
Or like
they felt really betrayed or they felt really upset about something. Right.
When I would teach classes about this, it's interesting. Like a lot of nurses or people in the medical field would be very interested in this. And I think that makes sense because they see a lot of death and things. And they would always be getting all the medical stuff. Of course, because that's what you know. That's what you do. Those pathways are there. You're using the same ones.
Right. That makes sense.
So I just think you need to adjust your expectation to being the kind of experience that would make sense for you to be having.
Yep.
Are you going to find what's interesting or are you going to find what's important?
Right. Good point.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Record what you receive in whatever way works for you. Okay. So not during. Some people can do it during, but that's really hard. I don't know.
It's a lot of switching.
It is. Maybe if you're talking aloud, some people do that.
You just record yourself.
You can just record. I think that's a great idea. A lot of times if you go get a reading, they'll record it for you or you can record it so that you can go back and listen to it.
I think that's very important.
I do too. But the thing is, like, when you're done, even if you're just doing it for yourself, you got to take a few notes because it's almost similar to when you first wake up from a dream. The info is right there of the experience. And then you walk away from it and you go live life and you go to think about what it was. And so much of it's gone because the state you're in is not like a fully, like all your memories, not like it's different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you're like, oh no, I'll remember that. And then you don't. Won't. Just write it down. Just jot it down. Put it in your notes app.
Yeah.
Voice record it. Like
whatever works for you. Right. I'm a notebook girl. I mean, you guys can't see if you're watching, but Jamie could literally glance over and probably see 7 notebooks.
Many.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. They're everywhere. That's just who I am. But I'll find old ones and I'll look and I'll have taken notes on something that like came through. And I'm like, I completely forgot.
Right.
Nothing I would have held on to, but now it actually makes sense way in the future. So like it's really a good idea in some way for yourself to do. Again, it's going to be the way that works for you. Not everyone's a notebook girl.
No, I'm a notes app. But it's the same thing. Like I have a million notes where I'm like,
same.
What was I writing? What was it? Like what that meant something at the time.
Oh God, do you ever scroll through your notes app and you're like, what the hell is this?
1,000 grocery lists.
Yeah. I don't put grocery lists there, but I do put like random things that I want to remember. Sometimes I'll like checklists and I'll go back and I'm like,
I didn't do any of those.
Yeah. Or like I'll see something. I'm like, what is that? I'll Google it. I did that the other day and it was like a name of a TV show. So someone must have told me about a good TV show. And then for that, I didn't.
You never watched.
It didn't work. Yeah, exactly. Okay. See what happens with the data you get instead of judging or like searching your past ferociously for what this means.
Okay.
So if dead grandma, this is going to be a very clairvoyant explanation. If dead grandma shows you a certain flower, that's what popped into your head when you were doing this. And you're like, why am I seeing that flower? Just wait. You're going to get it.
Right. Exactly.
Think about it. Ask some questions. Sure. But like, you'll see.
Yeah.
It'll come.
Yep.
Don't be so judgy and like figure it out right away.
Again, you're an ego when you're doing that.
Exactly. Okay. And then, and set the intention for like that to pop up.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you might get something that doesn't make sense. Just set the intention that things will, come back to you that will help make sense of it. Okay. And then lastly, make sure you close the door when you're done.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Another visual from
or the evil demons will crawl up behind you. Again, that's a horror movie.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
It's not for that though. It's not to protect you from like the demons coming through this plane. It's so that your energy is off.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to be like, why am I so tired?
That's a boundary issue.
Yeah, you've just got it open, and all of a sudden, you get distracted.
Flying everywhere.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
God, you go to the grocery store or something, and everyone's dead people are talking to you.
Right, call your energy back.
Yes. So you just want to make sure you close it. The other thing is, like I said before, with spirit in particular, they're not going to come to you unless they're like, that person's going to be able to close. Like, grandma's going to care about you.
Yes.
And she's not going to come tell you shit if you're not going to tell her to go away sometimes, right, exactly. Or to close the door. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's another thing. It's okay to tell them you're not interested right now.
I know.
I do that.
Tell them constantly. The on-off thing.
The on-off thing. What is
you always have like a close for business. Like
you
turn the sign, open, close, or like flip the switch on, off. Like
come back later. I'm not interested right now.
My office hours are 4 to 6 p.m.
And the thing is, I do open it up.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, it's easier for someone like me who can feel that it's someone's trying to get their attention. Not everyone can do that. Okay. Right. But if you're that person,
right.
If you are go away, it's much more respected if during the day I'm like, I don't know, I'm in the car or I'm taking a shower. I'm like, what do you got?
Right.
Make it snappy.
Make it fast,
we don't have all day.
Yeah.
And then I close it.
Yeah.
They respect that.
Of course.
So it's okay to do. All right, let's take a quick break, and then I just want to finish up with some things like if you're trying to give messages to someone else.
Okay.
And then also a category I've spicily titled "Things to Note."
Oh, okay, great. Okay. All right, Heather. This is another bad time obsessed segment. I swear to God, they're all going to be awful until this world gets its shit together.
The obsessed segment isn't promised to be fun. It's like what we're actually obsessed with and thinking about and talking about, and I think it's also what other people are thinking and talking about. So,
I literally cannot.
I wish
I'm not.
If you weren't watching, I wish you could see that hand movement. Maybe look for the clip.
I can't.
Very sassy. Yeah.
I cannot entertain myself with anything like frivolous or like the state of the world is so bad. And I'm sorry if I sound like a Debbie Downer. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but it's true. And it's time we face it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's time we face it. Right.
Yeah.
And I cannot bullshit you and come on here and be like, oh, this celebrity. Oh, did you see so-and-so? No, I didn't. Like there are people dying in Gaza. There's a genocide happening. Like there are college students being beaten by the police. Like I cannot think about anything else.
Right.
So there.
But I don't think you should have to apologize for that.
I just want to implore people to like, please do something.
Yeah.
Like we have an episode on Israeli-Palestine that came out I think it came out in October.
It came out a long time ago.
Yeah. And like this was before people wanted to call it genocide. We said that then.
We did.
We tiptoed a little bit around in some of it, but like,
well, if it's your first, or if you are like a lot of people, because this is why we made the episode, it was requested, was like, I want to know more about it, but I want like a safe source.
Yeah, we want to know what's going on.
So we weren't screaming about it. We were giving you the information.
We got heated in parts of it, but
of course, but
like,
not.
We let you know what was happening in that part of the world and like
the history
there and all that stuff.
Exactly. So you could be informed.
And so like we've been saying this, like we've been saying like let Gaza live. We've been saying it for 6 months now, and it feels like finally something has shifted, probably astrologically, definitely geopolitically.
Yes.
A lot of things are shifting.
Yes.
Where people are now realizing like, okay.
The part of the tower fell and the tower.
Exactly. And thank God for these college kids that are out there. Like,
yeah, but they're being arrested for peacefully protesting.
And having like fireworks thrown at them and like being gassed and pepper sprayed and like, anyways, it's bad out there.
Yeah.
And I just want you to use your voice.
Yes.
Like we have the episode, we're using our voice.
Yeah.
I'm using my voice on social media. Like,
yep.
I want you to use your voice in whatever way feels, whatever way feels uncomfortable for you. Like, I think it's time we stop feeling comfortable here.
Yes.
There's so many things happening in the world. Like there's an election in America coming up. That's also a fucking dumpster fire. Like our former president is on trial and sleeping through the whole fucking thing. Like It's a mess. It's a mess.
I don't mean to laugh at your very serious thing, but it's how do you not?
How is this real life?
How are people taking anything seriously?
It's such a mess.
Yeah.
It's such a joke that, but it's actually not funny. Like, it's so bad that it's not funny, but it probably should be. Like,
yeah,
it's awful. And
we're just too far past the point that you can turn away.
And I think we are all so uncomfortable. If you're intuitive, if you're empathic, if you're emotionally intelligent, you're listening to this podcast, you feel this.
Of course you do.
Even if you just think it's a bad mood, even if you just think you're not sleeping well, if you're feeling what's happening here, it's time to like embrace that discomfort and do something for like whatever it is. Like, just pick something that upsets you and like, please try to work to fix it.
Yeah. Be a part of the solution,
please,
in some sort of way, even if that's just educating yourself about who to vote for certain things and where they stand, and making sure you're asking questions and bringing it up in places where you can bring it up. Like,
right. Or if there's a post on social media that you're scared to post it.
Yeah.
Post it and figure it out. Like, and then you'll see who you really have in your life. Also, that's the life lesson there for you. But
and can I say to people to go further? Because it's not enough to just post about it.
Right.
You have to like walk the walk too.
Yeah.
Because posting about it's great because it spreads them. I definitely, I'm not trying to downplay that, but I just see this. It's sort of that influencer-y thing where it's like, oh, look, I'm doing all these posts, but then like, but you just went and voted against all these. Like, you also have to go into life and find ways to do this.
And like, these are the parts of being an intuitive person that suck. Yeah. Like, you think like, oh, I'm intuitive. I can do all these magical things. I can
speak to the dead.
I'm so whimsical and lovely. And like, yeah, parts of it are, but part of being an intuitive person is feeling all of this before other people do, seeing it before other people do, and then doing something about it.
Well, why do you think they murdered a bunch of women in the witch trials?
And called them witches? They were just women
who weren't following along with the rules and the norms and were standing up for people.
Exactly.
And yeah, exactly. They weren't just being controlled. Yeah.
Right. And like that, it's a cop out to be like, oh, I'm so intuitive. I'm peaceful. I'm not getting involved in this. I'm above this. No, you're not. No one's above it. We all live here. We're all here right now.
Please don't be that white lady.
Don't get me started on white ladies. Don't get me started on white women. We need to end this and it will go forever.
We're going to take a break and Jamie's going to rant off camera about white women. And if you're listening and you don't know who we are both white women, just to add that in.
Yes, we are.
So she'll gather herself and we'll be right back.
Fucking white women.
All right, Jay, let's talk about if you wanted to try reading someone else, like giving someone else messages from their spirit loved ones.
Don't you think it's interesting? Sorry, I'm jumping in here.
That's okay. Please.
I think it's interesting that people actually probably start with that.
Yeah.
Because that's what you see. You see people reading other people.
Yeah. And
that's the second part.
Look at my first thing. Practice on yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Here's the truth. Okay. It's way easier to do it for somebody else than it is for yourself. Way easier as far as like getting a spirit
getting
message.
The information.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's way harder to get like a cool message from your own grandma that you knew that's in spirit. Way, 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 way harder.
And managing that interaction with someone else.
Yeah.
You're managing the interaction with spirit, but then you're also managing the interaction with the person literally in front of you.
Yeah.
That's a lot of energetic management.
So much energetic management. And so though it's easier to have the communication with the spirit than it is your own, right? It's then when you go to do this with someone else, like there's so much more to it.
Right.
That the reason you need to have done this process with yourself and be familiar is like you need to know your process.
Yes.
Like you need to know how this works for you. Because if I go in trying to like read someone like the way you would, I'm not going to do a very good job, but I have to know how I do it.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what you establish when you do it. You practice on yourself first. Okay. But when you go to give messages to other people, you can be like, oh, I'm getting a lot more information here.
Right.
That's normal. But you got to do it for yourself first.
Exactly.
Okay. Also, before you start, you as the person doing the reading are in charge of establishing boundaries and intentions for yourself, for the other person and you and the other person. That has to happen.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And listen, you don't need to have them sign a contract.
No.
Maybe you want that. I wouldn't do that. But like, the thing is, like, there has to be some talking in the beginning about what's going on and how it's going to go and how your process is and what to expect. Even if there's no money exchange.
Listen to me.
The hand motions today, I don't know what has happened to you, but like, you are so sassy with your hands today and I'm really here for it. Okay.
I'm trying to drive up our YouTube viewers. No, I'm not. If you're doing any kind of intuitive work.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Like if you're doing anything, like if you're doing Reiki, whatever sessions, if you're doing anything like that, you should be talking to the person.
Yes.
If you're doing a card reading, tarot cards, if you're doing anything, you're doing a crystal grid for them, you're doing sound healing, anything like that, you should be talking to the person so they know what's going on.
Yeah.
They know what to expect. You're managing expectations, and then you go forward and you do the thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you a story.
Oh.
Well, you've already heard it.
Okay.
But I'm gonna
I'll pretend like I'm
pretend it's the first time
shocked.
you've heard it. When I would do readings like this with people back 100 years ago, when I, for some reason, was like, I'll agree to do this really hard, terrible job.
Sounds like you, actually.
Okay. Well, back then, in those first minutes of my spiel, I would get sometimes a confrontation that was important. So there was only 2 people ever that I
actually
kicked
don't
out.
know this.
Okay, so there are only 2 other people that in this talk I said they needed to leave.
Really?
Yes. And
I'm
they
not
did.
pretending I'm shocked right now. I really am.
I refunded their money.
Wow.
Because I was like, nope, absolutely not.
What did they do?
They just wouldn't, they wanted me to prove something.
Oh,
they were like, I'm not going to tell you anything and I just knew what I was in for. And like, listen, the next tip is about skeptics. Skeptics are always welcome to me. They're in a minute, I'll tell you why. They're the easiest ones to read ever. But anyways, like, it's not that. But if you're not going to respect my process, or the whole time you're going to make shitty comments about what I'm doing, or you start to say something about like religion that makes me uncomfortable, you're gone. And so I don't want to get halfway into a half an hour in or something, and then you start acting like that. So if I have this conversation with you right now, it's going to shift.
Yes.
There were many people, too many people, but there were people who I said, unless you change that, this is over now and you can leave. And then they shifted and put themselves in the correct state.
Good for you.
But it's so important. I know it sounds mean, but there was nothing I was saying that was mean. But listen, you're going to have people come to you who are not in a good place or have shitty intentions.
Waste of time.
Yeah. And
theirs and yours.
Yeah. You cannot put up with that. And if you can't do that with humans, then don't try to do it with the dead.
Well, those are just boundaries. It's not mean to have boundaries.
No,
you weren't mean about it. You just held the boundary.
You know me and how I am with other people.
Yes.
I let people.
You would have been probably way nicer.
Exactly. So if I actually had to tell you to leave, or
that's what I'm shocked about.
Yeah. Or, I know you've heard one of the stories about how like Matt had to come, the van guy.
No.
Okay, I'll tell you about that.
Oh my God.
Okay. But like you need to be able to establish this.
Yes.
For other people, the person that you're doing this with needs you to do that. Even if they suck, you're doing it for them as much as you're doing it for you.
And if you've moved along and you're doing like a group reading, say you go to someone's house and it's like the family that you're reading, that's going to ruin it for everybody.
There's always a heckler. You got to shut them down right away, or you ruin it for everybody.
You wouldn't do that to your doctor. You wouldn't do that to like your accountant. Why do you think you can heckle people?
Because Karens have existed in the law for long, and we just didn't know the name of it back when I was doing this.
White women.
Oh no, let's not get you started on that again. It took us like 5 minutes to recover from the obsessed segment. Okay. This is about the skeptics. I'm going to save you some time, people, right now. Don't try to make skeptics into believers. Don't bother.
Yes,
here's the thing.
Please.
Someone who's coming in, like, I'm going to call them a polite skeptic.
Don't apply this to everywhere in your life also.
Okay,
any skeptic.
Okay. A polite skeptic. They're not being mean. You're not kicking them out of the room, but they're letting you know they don't really believe in this.
Yeah.
You just hit the jackpot.
Okay.
because they're the easiest people. Because if you come in and you're like, I don't really think this is real, I give you one little tidbit of anything, you're blown over amazed.
Right.
It is so easy to impress these people.
Yeah. They
so
might not
easy.
say it, but they're going to be impressed.
You can tell.
Yeah.
They're like, oh.
They
and
won't
now
be like,
they believe.
oh, my bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's way harder for people who do it and are open to it and have had a million people tell them different things. That's because their bar is a lot higher.
That's a great point.
So don't worry about it. It's not your job to convince anyone.
No.
And it shouldn't be your intention, because that's very ego-based in the fact that you're doing it from a place of fear, and all of a sudden you just want to be accepted by people. Listen, I'm the fucking captain of that team, but you can't do it. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. It's very common for info that you pick up and you pass on to not make sense to the person right away.
Yes, that is common.
If they don't understand it, have them write it down.
That's why it's important to record it.
Exactly. Also, what happens, and shocker, I'm not a very patient person by nature. I don't think anyone has ever described me as patient my whole entire life.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not patient. So this is part of this. But like, there's so many times when you would be doing I would be doing a group reading or something, and I would say something, and I would be like, I think it's this is the name, this is how they died. And they're like, I have no idea who that is. Mm-hmm. And then like the person next to them goes, that was your dad?
You see that all the time.
All the time. Here's the thing. The person is so overwhelmed, and a lot of people go in like really wanting to talk to one certain person, and it doesn't work that way. Like you pick up, it's based on the energy of the spirit. Like, if you're trying to talk to dead dad, and dead dad would have never stepped to the front of the room and made a spectacle of himself.
That was my dead dad.
Yeah, and you're trying to do that in front of a big group of people. That's not going to work. Like that's not how it works.
Yes, I went to a group reading.
Tell the story, Jamie.
I went to a group reading with my husband and some of his family, his immediate family, and we both have dead dads.
Yeah,
and we went to see Maureen Hancock, who if you don't know her, she's
amazing,
incredibly talented.
Yes.
We were in a room
one of the best.
It's truly.
Yeah.
And we were in a room of probably 50 people. Mm-hmm. And she struts over and starts talking to us.
Yeah.
And only my father-in-law came through. Mm-hmm. And I was so hurt. Mm-hmm. Not by Maureen.
No.
And this was
by your own father.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Your own dead dad.
Abandoned once again.
Yes.
That he didn't come through. And it wasn't until I met you and started doing this work that you were like, Jamie, your dad wasn't like that. Your dad, when I'm talking to your dead people, he's standing in the doorway just looking. And I could, as soon as you said that, I could literally see my father. That's how my father was at every party we ever went to. Mm-hmm. He'd just stand on the periphery, chat, but he would never he was always just super low profile.
Wasn't the center of attention.
And I was like, damn it. Damn it. It makes so much sense. But I didn't know that. So my expectations were not appropriate for the event.
And it makes sense. You really want to talk to your dad, and grandma comes through or someone, and that's so good, but you can see the disappointment. Right. But for the person doing the reading, it's the loud ones, the ones that would push to the front of the line that are the ones coming through.
And that was my father-in-law. He was charming and social, and he had a message to deliver, so we delivered it, and it was my father was like, well, she knows I love her.
Yeah. I'm here. The thing is too, think about that when you decide what kind of reading you're going to go get.
Correct.
So if you really want to talk to a dead dad and he's not like that, you're going to want to do a one-on-one.
Yes.
Okay. Because that's more likely he's going to come through for you.
And I would say even to tell the medium that, be like, hey, I'm really looking to talk to my dead dad. I know that's not how it works, but this is really where I'm hoping for. Right.
Yeah. Do that. And they'll let them do it if they can.
Yeah. And if they're a good medium, they'll say, oh, I will do the best I can, but these things are how they are.
Yes. Don't give them too much information, but it's okay to say who you want to talk to.
Yes.
That's actually helpful.
It's not a trick, right? You're not trying to trick people.
Well, that's why I'm saying don't try to prove it, because then forget about it. Okay. You aren't wrong. If you got something, there's no right or wrong in this job. I know that's hard because your ego would love you to believe that.
Well, because that's how we've been taught that you're supposed to be at everything is right or wrong.
Yeah, it's just you're just interpreting something. Okay, so you could interpret something and give it to the person, and it the way you interpreted it doesn't ring a bell with the person you're telling. That's why you have them write it down. There's so many times when I have done this and I've got something and described it, and the person didn't know, and then later like, oh, it's this and just a slight different shift in how they were thinking about it, they figured it out. But the way I interpreted it
was a little off, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was just the way I would see it.
Right.
It was what's interesting to me.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And
right.
I don't want to keep going back to that, but like that for me, Hannah saying that, like what's interesting is prioritized, made me understand, even just in the intuitive world, what kind of stuff comes through and why.
Yeah.
It's just important to
Makes sense.
Okay. Part of your job is keeping the other person in the right state.
Yes.
You are reading into their energy field with your gifts and abilities. And I don't mean gifts like they're rare. I mean like your talents.
I'm going to
You practice a skill. Okay, go ahead.
This is, again, something that you can apply to everywhere in your life. And it's also why we do this goddamn podcast. This really shows like how universal intuition is.
Yes.
Like how practical it is. Everyone's intuitive. You can use it everywhere in your life. It's not just for seeing dead people, even though that's what we're talking about right now. Mm-hmm. But like all of these things you're talking about, you can apply to everywhere in your life. That's what intuition is. Mm-hmm. That's what real intuition is.
And that's why we try to take a lot of the woohoo out of it for you.
Right. And that's why it sounds like unfun to some people.
Yes. Yes. Now, listen, go do a seance and talk to Princess Diana and whoever else you want to. Love. Go for it. Tell us how it went.
Yeah.
But like this is going to be more helpful to you. You got to start here.
Exactly.
Okay. The thing here too is like, even if you're new at this, like you can't open up a can of worms you can't close, baby.
True.
Okay. So your intuition also has to be looking out for the person. So I'm going to tell you a story. I've changed enough details and it's long enough ago that no one will know who I'm talking about. But there would be times where people would come to me, and this is, again, a slightly changed example. Mm-hmm. Someone came to me, they came in for a reading. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was doing just whatever, like spirit, I would interpret like angel energy, and then like what I would pick up, and it was just kind of like a smorgasbord. Right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So they said, can you tap in to both my relatives and to whatever else you can pick up, because I've been having dreams lately that my grandfather sexually abused me. So could you find out if that's true or not?
Oh no.
Okay. So the answer is yes, I could find out if that's true or not. But my answer to her was no.
Good for you.
And I said, I would be happy to do this with a therapist present, but I will absolutely not do it without that.
Smart.
Okay. I know.
Jeez.
As an empathic, caring person, you want to do it. You want to help the person. You want to get the answer.
What a thing to ask someone.
I mean, I could tell by the phrasing of the question that it was already true, because I know how to do that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But absolutely not. Okay. Yeah. And it's nothing against that person. No, the person was very disappointed. They did come back with a therapist. Good. Okay. Great. But like you have to, if you're doing it, you have to hold that.
You're the boss.
Even if it's just your friend or whatever, you have to be careful with other people. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when you're first starting out, especially, give info out without trying to make sense of it in your head first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Because otherwise you're going to go cuckoo.
Right.
Okay. All right. Lastly, some things to know. I know this is long. Maybe it's 2 episodes. I don't know. I have a lot to say about it. Okay. First, things to know. Kind of spicy category, especially the first one. You say this all the time too, Jamie. You need consent.
Always.
You can't just do it. You can't just read someone's dead grandma and go up to them and give them information. No.
You've talked about that in multiple episodes.
You say it all the time.
And you tell stories about it. It should be a no-brainer in 2024.
It's not.
Like, you can't just say shit without having consent.
Yep. If you say something, you did get consent, and the thing you said puts somebody in a not good place, you have to get them back to the good place.
Yes,
you
that's
can't
your
just walk
responsibility.
away. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Even if you're like that innocent comment, that's happened to me before.
Yeah.
You're in it till they're okay.
Yes.
If you're not prepared for that, then don't do it.
Yep.
Okay. Know how you work best.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For me, it's in a one-on-one. Again, I would do the shows. I would hold them. I could do them.
I wish I had gone to one of your shows back in the day.
That is a lot of energy to manage. And I want to talk about like the deep stuff. And so to do that in front of a crowd is weird.
If you just don't even have the time for that. If you're in a crowd, you don't have the time to get into that stuff.
There are people, like you mentioned, Maureen Hancock, who are amazing in front of a crowd. And like, that's what they should be doing, because they move the whole crowd with every reading. Like even if it wasn't your reading, you get something from that.
Yes.
And they're really, really good at that.
Yep.
That's who should be doing that. But the point for me, that wasn't me. Like I didn't want to perform in that way. I wanted to dig into the information.
Right.
But my point in this is like, you don't have to do it like someone else. Find your way of doing it. And just because that one way isn't a way that you really shine, there's probably another way that you do.
Again, that's true for all things in your life.
I like that your job in this episode is to be like, also apply this to everywhere else in your life.
This is why intuition is so important.
Yeah. Okay. I said this already, but I'm going to say it again. Not everyone who develops this talent or this ability needs to become a medium.
No.
Okay, this one you're going to laugh. Consider doing your ancestry.
Whatever. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, listen. More on that in a second. If you start to, even if it's just asking questions of your family, but even we're not currently sponsored by Ancestry.com, but if they would like to call.
Probably not. They're Mormon. They're Mormon owned. Oh, okay. So they're probably not into us.
Oh, they probably don't like us. Well, one of my favorite celebrities, this is the dorkiest thing I've ever said on the podcast, is Henry Louis Gates Jr. from Finding Your Roots.
Oh, I love him. And that show is
so
good.
Much.
Yeah.
Oh my God, do I love him. Anyways, they're sponsored by
being
Ancestry.
Really good with like managing people's expectations and their energy. He is like masterclass.
I love him.
Yeah.
I want to meet him. If you're listening, would you come on the podcast, please? Oh my God, I love him so much. Okay, anyways.
Do my ancestry.
Can you help Jamie? Okay. She has something we think she might be, but she's having trouble finding out. Okay, anyways. Jamie's a little bitter about Ancestry right now.
Fine.
But it does help to like start to go in and do something like Ancestry.com that you can then see like where they're from and like different names and different jobs and like find out and have more information, because a lot of times you're tapping in and like you don't know who the person is, and that makes it harder to get it. If you have like a clear picture, it can be helpful.
And that's not cheating.
No.
If your ego voice is saying like, oh, you're cheating, you're finding the information.
No, that doesn't make any sense. No. You're not cheating. You can't cheat at this.
No, that's patriarchy.
Yes. Okay. Bring energy to you and then dismiss it. Don't throw your energy across the room. We talked about this in the clairsentience episode. My clairsentient friends love to do that.
Yeah, they do.
And then dismiss it when you're done with it. Don't let it hang around.
No.
Please and thank you.
Yep.
It's only just going to make you feel exhausted and have a very specific kind of headache. I just felt it for a second just thinking about it. Okay. Some people just walk around more open to spirit energy than others. It doesn't mean that they're the only ones who can do it. If that's not you, totally fine.
Yep.
Okay. It's what it is. I also have a theory that for women in different parts of their cycles, they're more open to it naturally than others. And I obviously I don't have any data on it.
Well, but that tracks 100%.
Okay. And then lastly, just go to a medium. If you want to start doing this, go to a show, go to a private reading. It will help you have an understanding of how to sort of the nuts and bolts of it a little bit, and it will help open you up to it. But ask around for a good one. Don't send us messages asking for a good one, because I don't have a list to send you, but like ask your friends.
Yeah. And also like take a class.
Yeah. With someone who doesn't have a 10-step program.
Right.
Doesn't tell you to wake up at 3 a.m. with a green smoothie and doesn't only teach to one Claire.
Right. But if you go to a show or you go have a reading done and you like that person, maybe they teach classes.
Yes, check it out. Sometimes people just have like an online like video sort of based class. Those are great. Do that. Right. Yes. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we hit everything.
Okay. So try it out. Let us know how it goes. Let us know if you have any pro tips we missed.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, learn how you do it specifically and how it works for you.
Yes.
That's the biggest takeaway.
Always.
I think we need some coffee. Let's
Definitely.